Very good to see you, Michael. So we are welcoming the Voyager Study Abroad to X-Culture again. So we've participated, Voyager Study Abroad participated in X-Culture 2-3 times several years ago. And so we obviously want to talk about the company. I assume much has changed over this time that we haven't been working together. But also one important thing happened in 2020, 2021, the COVID. And so the company specializes in travel, and I'm very curious to hear how this whole pandemic affected your industry as a whole, your company specifically, how you're coping, how you're adjusting to that. So maybe let's start a little bit, with a quick overview of what the company does, a little history, and maybe a little bit of review of the product, and then we'll get into the Q&A about the specifics of the business and the latest developments.
Perfect. So actually, Voyager Study Abroad was started in 2013. It was started by Ricia Charles and myself. Ricia was a former student of mine, but a very, very long time ago. And she is now a professor of marketing, and she had done study abroad programs with me for several summers with a different company. And both Ricia and I did not like the way the other company ran their study abroad program, which is not atypical, but a lot of study abroad programs, the students go to Europe and they visit the greatest cities in the world, and they eat lunch and dinner at McDonald's, and they don't bother to see the big sites. They do see the best clubs in each city, and pretty much don't take the academic portion of the program serious. And when they go home and their friends say, "Oh, you were in Paris, did you go to the Eiffel Tower?" they kind of shrug their shoulders and put their head down and walk away. So what we started to do in 2013, and I did the most of it because I was super excited about the project, was we designed a program that would go to the most important cities in Europe and visit all the important sites in Europe and run classes where we could integrate the academic portion of the class with the different activities that we were doing in each of the cities. So it's a pretty complicated program. I need to put on my glasses because I've gotten blind since we talked last time, Vas. We actually, for 2022, which is a toned down program, we plan to visit 5 countries and 11 different cities in Europe. So
that's for the next year.
For summer 2022, if we're able to run the program. And of course, COVID is a huge concern, and it's something that needs to be, we're going to need to address at some point, because at this point, I still really haven't started spending money on advertising, because it's a pretty much futile process to start dumping money. So I'm going to just say a little bit more about the program, and then I'll answer your questions. But the program,
we have a lot of questions already. Yep.
Okay. Voyager Study Abroad is unique in many different ways over any other study abroad program that I know. We have what's called a home away from home design, which is actually using a hub in Madrid where our university sponsor is. And the students keep their own single room in Madrid. It's actually a really nice room. It's very well accommodated. It has everything you can imagine, including a private bath. It has, a refrigerator. It has anything you can imagine. It has a desk. It's really a lovely place. We keep that the entire 30 days of the program, so that students have a place to go back to, and they have a place that they can leave their belongings when we travel, which facilitates a lot of the things that we do. And this residence is in close walking distance to our partner university in Madrid. So when we're in Madrid, we always have classes there in the morning. We sleep in Madrid about 50% of the program, but we travel to the other cities over 60% of the program. It's just to save some cost. We try to go back at night to Madrid when we're in another city so that we can see the other city, but we don't have to pay for another hotel for that evening. So we use all planes and high-speed trains, except in a few cases when it doesn't make sense. We have changed the program from last we talked, and we're now focusing on specific types of classes, and we're integrating these activities into those specific type of classes. So we had previously focused on business, and just about every other study abroad program out there has a focus on business. A lot of schools require business students to travel abroad. And so we've kept 2 or 3 business courses in our program, but we thought that we could do some very unique things. So we have art classes, and we visit like 8 or 9 of the top art museums in the world just because of the countries and cities that we're traveling to. And we also have an international and European focus in our classes because we do see so much of the major cities in Europe. And we have a lot of experience in doing these programs and traveling, and we are going to use predominantly professors that live in Europe. We have a terrific relationship with our sponsor university. And unlike a lot of other privately run study abroad programs, we are able to issue transcripts that the students at their universities do accept credit from third-party providers. We're considered a third-party provider. There's a very high likelihood that their university would accept our credits because our transcripts come from Endicott College in Massachusetts, which is accredited by the same accrediting body that credits Harvard and all the other schools in the New England area. So it works out very well for us. We have a great relationship with them. They're terrific for our students. They give them student IDs, which actually works out good for me because I get discounts on a lot of the activities that we go to because the students have European university IDs. They get use of their library and their computer resources, and they can pretty much go to the university anytime they want if they want to work there when we're in Madrid. The residence that we stay at is terrific. The students get breakfast and their choice of lunch or dinner. When we're in Madrid, the food is fabulous. They can get as many different things as they like, and the menu changes. Well, the breakfast menu is pretty much the same every day. The choices are pretty much the same, but the lunch and dinner menus change every single day. And I can tell you from past experience that the students actually love being in Madrid, love staying at the residence, and love the food that they get while they're there, which is a huge cost savings. When we travel, we used to stay in predominantly 4-star hotels and some 3-star hotels. And what happened in 2016 and 2017, the 2 times we actually ran a program, because I'm going to get into that in a little bit. The 2 times we ran the program, we had either very wealthy kids, were kids that, you know, had really saved up for a long time and were going into debt to do our program because it was costing in the neighborhood of $10,000 for the 30-day program. And at that price, I was still losing money. My break-even point was always 20 students, and I'm an accounting professor, so I'm pretty good at setting up my break-even point. And the most students we ever had was, I think I wrote 14, but it was 15. And the other time we ran the program, we only had 8. So in addition to all my fixed expenses and advertising expenses, when we actually ran the programs, we still were running them in the red. And I actually talked to an ex-culture student last night, and I was trying to explain that when the students are in Europe, I end up doing a lot more activities with them that are actually planned, like if there's something special going on in the city. And in the past, I've paid for those activities because it was incredibly important to me that the students have an experience of a lifetime. And I believe that I'm I believe that every student that's participated in the program has had an experience of a lifetime, and I've stayed in touch with them all. I hear from every single one of them, and they become like a family, and actually it's a beautiful thing. And those are the positives. So I don't know, Voss, if you want me to go into a lot of the negatives, because there's a lot.
I actually have quite a few questions.
Okay,
So,
go ahead, shoot.
one, let's talk a little bit about this whole academic credit. So it's not just a fun trip overseas, right? So it's an academic event. The program involves not only museums and sightseeing and food, but also visits to companies, business meetings. So can you talk a little bit more about both how the program is designed to be specifically for learning as opposed to tourism? And two, how does it work with credit at universities? Can you use these trips as part of your basically formal curriculum?
Absolutely. That's a terrific question. So before any student should join Voyager Study Abroad, and we insist that before any student goes on our program, that they go to the study abroad office at their university and they speak to their academic advisor. If we are offering a class that doesn't fit into their curriculum and they take that class, there's a very strong possibility that their university will not accept those credits and transfer. There are also universities that, because they run their own study abroad programs, and there's a lot of them, that will not accept credit from third-party providers. It doesn't matter who they are. So from things that I've looked at, about 60% of schools would accept credit from us. They're actually accepting credit from Endicott College. They're not accepting credit from us because we're setting up the program and we have a partnership with them, and they issue the transcripts. It's just like any other transcript where the student has to go online. They have a student ID number. They can print out the transcript. They stay registered with that school, which I think our relationship is very special. I don't think a lot of other third-party study abroad programs have that close of relationship with their partner. We try to offer classes that would meet the students' curricular requirements. I mean, we don't offer, crazy out there classes that are so unique that there would not be a chance that the students would accept a transfer, that the university would accept a transfer credit. And in the past, I've spoke to the study abroad advisor and the academic advisor and tried to explain to them what we're doing. And we have transcripts from all our classes. Let me talk about the academics a little bit. We have—
Mike, if I can ask one more question about the credit. So when students, so if the university accepts your study abroad tour as, for credit class, do the students still have to pay tuition at their university, or usually whatever they pay to you, that's all?
They should not. There might be some universities that do. I haven't had that as an issue, but in the summer, normally the students are free, and we are a summer study abroad program only. So they should only pay us, which is actually a great point, that if you take into account you're spending a month in Europe, you're staying in decent hotels, you're traveling to incredible places, all your admissions are paid for, you have a cultural experience that I think is unrivaled by any other program. If you take that all into consideration and you're not paying tuition, it actually works out to be an amazingly good deal. If you're going to a state university, it's probably costing you a little more money to take our classes, because if you're going to a state university and you're paying in-state tuition, it might be a little less per credit. But if you're going to a private university, it actually could come out that you're getting your European experience for 30 days and you're getting the academic credits, and it's costing you less money than if you would have just gone to your home university and taken those credits. The classes meet the academic requirements of any university in the United States, and in all likelihood, any university in the world, because we do teach the classes and we do have the activities that are related to those classes. If an activity is not specifically related to a particular class, then we don't count that as contact hours. And that's something you would be more familiar with, I think, Voss, than most of the students would be. But we keep very close track because we want to keep our relationship with our sponsor university, and they don't want us running a party free-for-all. So, I mean, one of the reasons we go back to Madrid, everything seems like it has one purpose, but it usually has dual purposes, or sometimes 3 or 4 purposes. We always are going back to Madrid, and we're actually teaching classes in Madrid with professors that have PhDs that are academically qualified in the subjects they're teaching. And then in addition to cultural activities that we encourage all the students to participate, there are activities related to each of the classes. We do have, you asked about business activities. We do go to businesses. We make sure that they're integrated into the particular class. There's normally assignments and papers that are related to those visits, but we do a heck of a lot of in-class contact hours, and it's not an issue. I mean, we count all of them up. They're very cautious. Actually, they keep an eye on me. They make it easy because I present to them what I want to do, and then they go back and check, and then they come back to me, and I make sure that everything is as expected. And I actually went on vacation with my wife to Madrid this summer, and I went by the university because, as you all probably have figured out by now, we haven't run a program since 2017, and I wanted to make sure we still had a relationship with them, and they would still sponsor us and issue our transcripts. And they told me that they would do anything that we wanted them to do, that we've been terrific, that we followed the rules, that we're unlike other people, and they still want to work with us. In fact, they told me that if I don't get 20 students, they know it's economically difficult, they would not charge me if we used all the resources. They've just been amazing. But it's 100% legitimate from an academic perspective, which I think a lot of university programs are. A lot of university-run study abroad programs are, because they're run by the professors within those universities who are not necessarily experts in study abroad, but they are experts on the academic portion. So most university programs do meet the academic requirements, but I've actually been the program director for 2 other third-party study abroad programs, and I could tell you that the academic portion of the program is kind of lost and not as important. But I'd just like to reiterate, for us, it's not just the academic portion of the program. We consider ourselves a complete cultural immersion program. We make sure that students, when they are in a city, see every important site within that city, which is not easy, and actually it's very costly, and in fact it's very exhausting. And we also try to make sure that people eat at the places that they can get the experience of what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, so yes, when you mentioned that the price is about $10,000, it seems like it's a huge amount of money.
It's a huge amount of money, and I think that that's been one of my problems. And right now,
but you're correct when you look at it as part of the course. Like if the course, if the program counts as a course, even at the state university, usually a course costs you a few $1,000s. If you're out of state or private school, so you literally can be saving money, because sometimes a course can cost you more than $10,000. In a sense, you get all this interesting month overseas, all the program, for the price that you would be paying for some lousy whatever the course you would be taking and sitting in the classroom all semester. So
that's absolutely true. But I just, based on comments, and this is something I would love the students to help me out with, because this is a big issue. And I don't know if Reese is on, because I actually accidentally closed my Zoom screen and I can't seem to find it.
And also Alicia Henry joined us.
Yes, I'm here. Alicia is here. I believe Marsha is here. She's signed on as Maya Phillips. So,
and what about Nikki? Because Nikki told
I'm
me.
not sure. I'm going to message her now to see if she's on.
Thank you, Ricia. So the students that have worked with us in the past, and Ricia, I don't know how familiar she is with some of the changes that were made, but I now have the program priced. And again, unfortunately, I'm an accountant, so I have to do numbers, and I always try to keep it at a break-even point of 20 students, which I think is a reasonable amount. It's much smaller than most study abroad programs would be. For one class, I have our price now at $8,390. And for 2 classes, I have the price at $8,990. And the way that I was able to make these changes is I cut out a couple of the cities that we normally go to. When we're in Spain, we normally go to Sevilla and Cordoba, and I cut them out of the program so that it could be less costly. I also thought that they added to the exhaustion level and didn't allow the students to have enough free time because we never really stopped and took a break. And I have almost all 3-star hotels now. I think there's 1 4-star, where in the past I tried to have mostly 4-star hotels and a couple 3-star hotels. And
so, but this price tag includes everything, including the tickets to and from, or
no, it includes everything with the exception of the tickets to get to Madrid round trip. And it would make sense for me to include that because the students are coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
So I really can't work out a deal or a price because it's pretty much.
It's not a group flight.
Right, it doesn't make any sense. Now, usually Madrid is one of the less expensive places to travel round trip to in Europe. And we try to make the program run from and to good travel days as far as the price of the tickets. We take that into consideration. So I'm not 100% sure, but we normally like start on a Wednesday and end on a Tuesday or Wednesday so that students can travel on less expensive travel days because we know they're buying their tickets. And we try to do as much while we're in Europe to keep the students' costs down, their incidental costs down. That's not to say that we haven't had students that have spent thousands of dollars of their own money while in Europe, but you could pretty much get away with a much smaller amount of money, which we think is important. So what we include is all the lodging in Europe, all the transportation, all the activity, all the classes. We do guided tours at most of the activities. We do a walking tour in every city, which is something that I think we do exclusively, but I want to make sure that at minimum, the students have seen the high points of the city and know about what makes that particular city special. And I don't know if this is the right point to say this, but I've done this and I'm still doing it, even though I've lost tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying to do this. I've lost a significant percentage of my money that I've saved for retirement trying to do this, but it's a labor of love. It's super, super important to me that I love Europe. I think it's an amazing place. And I think that travel is a very important thing for everybody to do, especially students. And I think that the learning experience we provide and the cultural immersion experience that we provide will change the life of the student for the better. And it really hasn't been a lot about making money. In fact, if I was always breaking even, I would be absolutely thrilled. If I was always losing a little bit of money, I would be absolutely thrilled and be happy to run the program, and it wouldn't be a huge issue to me. But I don't know if you want me to talk about it now, but we've had a lot of problems lately which have increased our debt and made it more difficult. And I also want to shut up because we have people that are online that could actually give the students a different perspective. I mean, Ricia, I'm sure, has a different perspective than me, and Alicia and Masha, and if Nikki's on.
And Nikki is here too. Nikki signed on as yourself as well. So
Okay.
you see here two Michael Tylers.
Oh, Nikki's me. Okay, great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I wish I was Nikki, so Nikki could be me. So let me, before I stop talking and let them talk. So obviously we're study abroad, and you asked this question in the beginning. So COVID has been disastrous. I've been trying to get this company off the ground since 2013. I've only been able to run programs in 2016 and 2017. I pay for advertising every single year, even when I haven't been able to run the program, which means in some years I've lost $50,000 or $60,000 just on advertising and then had to cancel the program. You know, it seems
Can you tell us
obvious.
more how you did the advertisement? Because one of the questions in the challenge brief is how should you advertise in the future? Can you tell us more how you've done it in the past?
and I'm going to tell you what I've done in the past and tell you it hasn't worked. There are study abroad referral websites. The two biggest ones are studyabroad.com and goabroad.com. And between those two study abroad referral websites, over the years, I've paid them in the neighborhood of $100,000. And if I got one or two students from those study abroad referral websites, then I would be surprised. I don't think that they've ever actually resulted in anything. And so I could have had 10 students go for free and not advertise with them at all, and I would have been just as well off. I also did a lot of Facebook and Instagram advertising. I actually had a person who was doing the marketing for a couple of years, and I also had a company that was supposedly helping with the marketing for a year. And we spent maybe, in the neighborhood again of close to $100,000 on Facebook and Instagram marketing. And we had a tremendous number of leads, but again, I don't think we got very many, maybe one or two students. In 2013,
Can I ask you, because the students will be recommending Facebook and Instagram, so students, you pay attention to this because it's being tried. But I'm curious, so you said you worked with an individual and with a professional company helping you. What's your experience? I mean, because again, that's a question for us at X-Culture. So should we hire a professional company? Should we continue advertising using our own resources and experience? Do you think there was much difference when you hired a professional company to do it, or how did it work for you?
I think that the professional company was a disaster. They started spending like ridiculous amounts of money in very short periods of time. I don't think that they tested things like, to me, I'm not a marketing person, I'm an accountant, but I would spend a small amount of money on a variety of different things. And if one of them worked, then I would spend more money on that and stop spending money on the other things. And what they would do is they would see that they weren't delivering, and then they would just start spending more and more of my money and convince me that, this was definitely going to work. And if we spent, another 20,000 this month here, that all of a sudden I was going to rein students. And of course that didn't happen. It's not to say I didn't have leads. I had, tons of leads, but there's a lead and there's a lead. I mean, somebody who just clicks on something just to look at it, it's not necessarily somebody who's going to want to go. And I don't know if our price sticker has been what in the past has been the deterrent, because, there are less expensive study abroad programs where they appear less expensive, and in most cases they offer a lot less, or if we just haven't been good at closing leads, and that's been a huge problem. I mean, it's not, I don't like doing it, and it's not something that most people like to do. Let me just quickly tell everybody, I have like some interesting problems. So you would think that this year that COVID was the major disaster, but this, Voss, but I'm going to actually let the students know. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to be alive. There was like a year there that everybody thought that I was not going to make it. And it looks like, at least for now, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm back to exercising and doing everything that I did. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, Voss, but last time you saw me, I had curly black hair that I combed back, and when my hair grew back, it grew back straight and gray, which is a very interesting thing. But the nice thing was I had a big bald spot in the back, and I'm probably the only person that had chemotherapy that grew back more hair after than before. So I'm happy to be alive. And that was part of why we were unable to run a program. And then COVID came along, which iced the cake. And 2 years before that, I hurt myself in the gym. And there was a while I couldn't walk. I had to have spinal surgery and spinal fusion. And so there's been like a couple like really unusual things that have, contributed to the negative things going on. And I'm at my office now. I'm still working. I'm teaching a full load of classes now. I'm a professor. And I'm planning on I shouldn't say this so loud because my voice carries, but I'm planning on retiring next semester and just focusing on this. This is what I want to do. The problem, with the company is I'm planning on spending a lot of money again this year on advertising because it's important to me to make this work. But I have to do everything that I'm doing knowing that I don't have any guarantees of how long I'm going to be here. Like it's pretty much touch and go. So it's a very unusual business experience. I think it should be interesting to the students because one of the things that I have to keep in mind is if I'm finally able to make this work in 2022, which is very dependent on what happens with COVID, and something happens to me and I can't do it in 2023, to me, it's important that I have somebody that keeps the thing going. And I know RISI is certainly going to help with that. And I know that, some of the former students would be interested. And we did work with a professor in Spain for a couple of years that also has an interest, but it's something that I have to keep in my mind and I have to start to formalize because I mean, one of the things you're going to learn in business, and one of the things I think you should learn in X culture is all businesses have to have a succession plan. And I thought that I was going to live for at least 20 more years, and I can't really think that way anymore. So I mean, I do think that way, but I mean, I also have to be realistic and I have to keep in mind that I could be wrong. So I need help. Let me just, before I shut up and let everybody else talk, because I'm really grateful to all them for attending. I lowered the price. I increased the number, I decreased the number of students we went to. I slightly lowered the quality of the hotels and I kept the break-even point at 20. So that allows me to spend advertising and whatever I need to do to get the students and pay all the expenses that are related to the program at $83.90 for one class and $89.90 for two. But I have like a huge question, and it's a marketing question, and I haven't really spoken to RISI about it a lot, who's a marketing professor, but would I be better off charging more and then giving people discounts, incentives, scholarships, and things like that to go to the program rather than charging what actually is my break-even price? And then I get to the point where if I charge a little bit more, our students just going to look at my program and not really look at it in depth and see all the extra things we do and how much higher quality is than all the other programs and just move on because the sticker price is what an issue. So I always have that as a problem. And it's a problem, even though, again, I lowered the price. And as I said, it's not an issue for me to make money. Really, it's an issue for me to not lose a lot of money. I'm in a very interesting situation because my wife does make a lot of money and she supports my hobbies and she considers this a hobby. I don't consider it a hobby, but it's not an easy situation to keep on going back to the bank. It's like, when you start to lose money at some point in a business, I mean, I teach this. This is like what my expertise is. At some point, you're supposed to start becoming profitable. And this business, because of all the things we talked about, just never has even gotten close. I mean, in the best year we had, we still lost like $50,000 or $60,000, which is, not a good thing. Okay, I'm going to shut up, but I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't quite see the math behind the enterprise. So I've had those questions when we do the X-Culture Symposium. So it's only a week in our case, and we usually stay within about $100 a day. So everything included, but we do get some sponsorship. So ours, and plus we have a much larger group. So we have about 150 students or so people that allows us to get a much better, lower cost per person. But some people can approach it and they say, well, if I went on my own, I can get a hostel for this much per day, and I can eat at McDonald's for this much a day. And so I think I can survive on about $75 a day. What they don't realize is that the whole point is not the hotel and the food, it's the program. So you have visits to the companies, you have guided tours, you have lectures, you have seminars, you have all kinds of things. And so that's where the value is. And obviously the food is a little bit better than McDonald's, and the living conditions are, in your case at least, much better than a hostel or some Airbnb. And so sometimes people just kind of don't do it, don't do the math the right way. And so that's not a tourism per se. I mean, as a tourist in for example, Madrid, you will see architecture, maybe you'll stop by some museum, but then you pay extra. So here is a whole different level of experience, and that's what costs money, not just the transportation, food, and lodging. But anyway, so you have some guests here, so if you,
We do.
yeah.
So probably one of the things the ex-culture students can look at is exactly that question Mike just asked in terms of the pricing and discounts, or going for one level price, and bearing in mind what their expectations are as a student going to Europe, so they can actually look at the accommodations, because they're all listed on the website, so they could look at the accommodations, and if they think we're shooting still too high in terms of accommodation, they can probably make suggestions for something that is still safe, because we do not want to be on the hostel level, but something that's still safe and, comfortable, right? So yeah, I'll turn it over to Alicia, Marsha, and Nikki.
And
Yes,
well,
you
if
can
I may
share your
add to that,
experience.
Ricia,
Mhm.
one thing I liked about Voyager is that we weren't on the hostel level, which is one of the reasons why my mom was comfortable sending me. So when the students are looking at that, I would also like them to take that into consideration. Like, I'm a lot older now. At that point, I wasn't really so focused on where we were staying, but I was very appreciative of it when I got there. So for Voyager me knowing what it is and the experience that I was able to get through you, Mike, and everyone else, that part of it, I would like it to stay as authentic to that as it could be.
Okay.
I know we have to look at pricing, but that factor, I didn't appreciate it as much until I got to Europe.
Okay.
So I would just like them to keep that in mind and maybe take it as a point on a note, because it was very important, even if I didn't realize it at the time.
And that's a very good point to make, because until someone goes to Europe and see the big variety of accommodations, from the hostel, not so very safe, to to the safe accommodations, they will not appreciate it.
Correct.
Marsha, Nikki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm not sure exactly, my background is a little different. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure exactly what we're trying to point out in the Zoom. Maybe I have a feeling that it's about like the marketing, how we get a lot of students. But for my case, I did not see it as a marketing. I found out about it not even through Professor Tyler. It was from a friend of a friend. And so I wish I could tell you that I found out about the program through like a marketing strategy, but it wasn't. I found it out on the old-fashioned way, and that was through the word of mouth. Like it traveled through word of mouth, and we had a friend that told us, oh, but he's actually an accounting professor who, by the way, was my accounting professor. And I didn't know about it until a friend of a friend. And then it all circled back to my professor, who is Professor Tyler. And that's how I found out about the program. And it was actually, a fun fact was, it was actually my first time in Europe when I did Voyager Europe. And I not only did I do it once, but I do it 3 times. And I think it was a consecutive time, 3 consecutive summers that I did it with them. And it was interesting too, because by the last time I did it, or the second time, I can't remember, but I did it like a little late. Like I think I came like 5 days late, but I still had the most amazing experience. And I've always, every time I go with them, I always find out new different things. Even some places we did the same, and some trips we had it different, but every single time I come there and I learn new different things, and I can't express that enough. That's all I could say. Let me know if there's anything I can answer or help.
I think that's an important point, because we have three former participants online. We have Alicia, we have Nikki, and we have Masha. And all three of them came because they knew somebody. It was all word of mouth. That's what I was saying before. Of the probably a total of maybe $250,000 I've spent on advertising, I don't think I've gotten more than 1 or 2 students. So, I mean,
And I think, Mike, one note on that as well, if I may interject, is it wasn't just the word of mouth, it's the experience that everyone that they passed on. So it was when I was being told about Voyager through Ricia and Sarah, who went the year before me, who is not on this webinar, it was like, oh, you have to go, you have to find the money, you have to try and get there. So it's like, okay, maybe I really should do this. So it's not just the word of mouth, it's the experience that you pass on through people that it's a connect right away and you really want to try and get on the program. So I feel like that's what a lot of the online marketing is missing, the authenticity of another person's experience that they have with you, because you're really wonderful. You make the program so unique. And I feel like online it's hard to express that or for people to get that through the marketing platform, because some of them probably don't even know you as personally as I got to know you through Ricia before even meeting you. So it's that dynamic that I think is really missing from the marketing on a global scale. And I'm not sure if the students are going to be working on this, but I hope they can find a way to express that. I'm personally I am a brand manager at this point. I do marketing for a living. I was actually an intern while I was on this trip. I was doing the social media. We got some good traffic because I really like stories and snapping and everything. I was a little bit younger, so I was really into social media at that point. So someone who's young and dynamic that can keep that livelihood going so that the experience can be passed through persons. I think that is extremely important, not just because of the marketing background, but because of the reason I joined the program. So yeah, I don't know what else I could add.
So in the remaining few minutes, are we still sharing more experiences? Because there is one more important thing that we need to do before we are out of time. I wanted to go through the list of the questions in the challenge instructions and just make sure that everything's clear as to what you would like the students to work on. So maybe with your permission, I'll share the screen and show you. So this is what we have for the students, and then Mike and everybody else. So if you have any comments or suggestions or clarifications, let the students know. But so the first report or section of your report needs to look on, or basically you need to find the best market. And so for that, we suggest that you analyze the competition, you analyze the industry, and then you look who would be the potential new customers. Would it be within the United States or other countries? Would it be a different country? Would it be a different customer segment? And so we suggest that you conduct your own market research and maybe talk to some of your friends, maybe 3-5 friends, and ask them some of these questions, like, have you gone on a study abroad tour? How did you choose? Have you heard anything about Voyager study abroad? Would you go on a tour like this? Why or why not? So there are a bunch of questions here that you can ask to both educate yourself about what the customers think and how they think about it, but also to get a better idea about the industry. And so with this knowledge, you will be much better positioned to provide better advice for the company. But also our hope is that, yes.
Oh, I'd like to interject here because in the past, when we've done this, I've seen some reports where the students have suggested doing study abroad in places like South America and China. So in terms of answering that part of the question, they need to be mindful that it's about, getting students interested in Europe, because Europe is our focus. It's where are we getting the students from? Are they students coming from the United States, Canada, maybe even South America, China, or, anywhere in the world? But how do you, asking all of these questions, how do you interest those students in coming to Europe to study for a month?
Yeah. So here, when we say market, we don't mean the destination of the trip. The destination is set, so it's going to Europe. So the market is where the clients, in this case, students, come from. And so you're
Exactly.
open, they don't have to be from the United States or from Barbados or from Grenada, so they can come from anywhere. And
Anywhere.
so as long as they can make it to that meeting point in Madrid, that's where the,
Mhm.
and so again, I can see, obviously, I mean, I assume most of the students have been probably from the United States, but I can see how this could be of interest to students from anywhere, from Canada to Australia to New Zealand or Latin America for that matter. So, yeah. There's also one question from Pia here, just to make sure. So she says, do you think it'd be interesting to change to upscale hostels? And there are a couple of names here instead of hotels. They're still higher quality and it's possible to book private rooms. It will be much cheaper that way. I'm curious if you have kind of good answer. I suspect I know the answer, but still.
I think I have a good answer. This year, I actually contracted with a hotel provider in Europe to locate hotels for me that were very reasonably priced. And the fact is I'm getting 3- and 4-star hotels, mostly 3, but some 4-star hotels that are not costing me more necessarily than staying in a hostel. And I think that I agree with the student's question, but I think parents are a little bit more comfortable, and probably most students are more comfortable staying in a hotel. What our requirements are for lodging is that it be in a safe neighborhood, that it be in a neighborhood that's close to public transportation, that the hotel include air conditioning, because American students, which are.
Oh, we had a problem with that in Italy in 2018 for the Sculpture Symposium. Turns out not all hotels and dormitories have air conditioning, and it was something like,
Exactly.
And it's a big problem, and it's probably more of a problem with students from America, that they expect the rooms to be cold. And even if you get a hotel with air conditioning, the hotels in Europe are not necessarily the same as far as temperatures, the hotels in other places. But we make sure that they have private bath. We try to make sure that the rooms are usually doubles, and that they have separate beds for each of the students. And they have to provide breakfast, because we're trying to cut the costs for the students so they can eat a big buffet breakfast and maybe not spend so much money on food. I mean, all those things are very well thought out. I don't think that hostels would necessarily work for us, but some programs use them. I know of a program that I actually ran the year before, and the following year they used hostels, and they had almost a revolt from the students. They were afraid that their stuff was going to get stolen. They didn't know the people that were with them, and it got to be a pretty big issue. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I don't think, like, if you go back and you run the numbers, I don't really think that somebody could go to Europe for 30 days and, have everything pretty much paid for. And I don't think they could do it for the price we're charging. I mean, I think to go to all the different activities that we do, not counting the fact that they're getting the academic courses, and they're filling academic requirements, and they're learning a lot of stuff, and they're making lifelong friends. And I mean, I love when I hear Alicia talk and Nikki talk, and I hope to hear from Masha too, because this is what I did for my life. This is the most important thing to me, is that this program actually had an effect. And I would be very careful about changing the lodging too much, because I don't want anything to detract from the experience. But it is a good suggestion, and I have thought about it, but I don't think it would.
In terms of that, I mean, the residents that we stay in Madrid, I mean, you do get that sense of community, and the experience with others there as well. It's not a hostel, it's far from it, but it's almost like a dormitory experience within a very, very safe neighborhood. So because I see Pia is asking additional questions about the experience and the community feeling, rather than being in upscale hotels, etc.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Pia could say that you guys had a great program when we all got a chance to be roommates with each other at one point in the trip.
Exactly.
So it was inevitable that everyone would get to know each other, whether we liked each other or not.
Exactly. And that's one of the unique things that we do have, because that is something, as long as we are changing cities, we always try to interchange the roommates. So persons are not always staying with the same person for the entire 30 days. So everybody gets to know everybody. I mean, Nikki has been my roommate even.
Yeah, it
And
reminds
Nikki's
me
been a good
about the,
roommate.
it reminds me about the whole issue of shared office versus private office space. Not so long ago, the whole hype was about shared offices, which presumably create a sense of community and idea sharing. And so after about 10, 15 years of trying and building all those open offices, we know it doesn't work. So it works, people are more focused, more productive, happier, satisfied when they have a little privacy and they can, deep work. And so for a program like what you describe, where it's always intensive meetings, new sites, new languages, new food, you want to have that comfort of, when you come at night in your hotel, you want to have kind of a little bit more comfortable, safer, maybe private environment, as opposed to, being in a big tent with everybody and, constant noise and need to go to maybe shared bathroom and kitchen and whatever else.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, you
anyway,
need
so
that time to decompress and
yeah,
you need that
exactly,
time to decompress.
I'll
Yes.
be honest, I used to share hotel rooms when I went to conferences. And again, it's, nice opportunities to meet people and to get to know them. But yeah, conference is extremely demanding, psychologically, mentally.
Exactly.
And you want to sometimes be able just to come to your room, shut the door, not hear anyone, so you need that downtime, in an event like this.
And the good thing about the university residents, and again, I'd love to hear from all the students about this. And I know we're always crushed for time because I always talk too much, but the great thing about the university residents, it's actually nice. We call it a home away from home. And I think that's actually what it becomes during the trip. It's amazing that we go to amazing cities, and when we get back to Madrid and they get to the university residents, they're actually happy, I think, most of the time. And I think that the food is pretty good, and I think the entire experience there is pretty good. And if you got to study, you have your own room, you have your own desk. There's also places to study within the university residence. There's a dining hall. There's a little lounge area.
There's a gym.
Yep.
There's a
Yep.
gym, yeah.
There's a gym. There's a laundry. I mean,
And there's a pool.
there's a pool. There's a I don't like to advertise this too much, but there's a bar. I mean, it's not. I mean, I think everything that we do, I think adds the experience, but that's just me. Really quick, I want to say Nikki went 3 times because we did run a program once with 3 people when we first started out. And I don't even really count it. It was more of a test thing to see if we actually could go to all the places and run it through. So the programs we ran that were really programs for 2016 and 2017, but Nikki went 3 times because she went on the trial, and Nikki's very special. I call her our goodwill ambassador, because if there's anybody that somebody doesn't like or want a room with, Nikki will always step up and volunteer and turn them around and get them happy and engaged, which is always an important thing to do. And of course, Alicia and Masha are amazing, former participants, and that's why they're online. And they were always enthusiastic in helping with everything. I mean, it's the kind of program where the students have to start getting involved and helping out because there's so many things going on. It's really hard to imagine. And I think they will all tell you, including Ricia, that at some point during the program, at least a couple times, or maybe more than that, I almost have a nervous breakdown because it's just a lot, and you want it to be perfect. And of course, and Vosh, you've run conferences before also. Things don't always go as you expect, and all good plans sometimes start to fall apart in a line.
All the time.
And if the students aren't good natured and don't get along and aren't happy, little things could become big things. And we've never really had that experience. We've been super lucky that, one time I misread European time, and we were supposed to have a bus pick us up at the hotel, and we arrived right after the bus had left the transport. And something was stupid like that. It cost me like $1,000, but we were able to get another bus to take us. And I mean, everybody, it looked like it ran relatively smooth. It wasn't big difference, but I was basically having a heart attack because I don't like when things get messed up, but they do. But we have terrific people. We have great cooperation from our professors and everybody that works with us. And I think Ricia's point is really good. Our problem is identifying markets that we haven't tapped. And I would pretty much say that everything we've done in the past for marketing has been a bomb. And I mean, I haven't even started advertising yet because I need help. I don't want to spend money on Facebook. I mean, there was one month that we spent like $23,000 on Facebook, and I got nothing from it. You think, wow, well, it's not a lot of money, but this is not a typical company. I am bankrolling the entire company. And if it was me bankrolling the entire company, honestly, I wouldn't care, but I have to go back to my wife and say, Marty, listen, you know, we spent $23 in advertising this month and I need money for next month. I mean, it makes it pretty tough. I have pretty much, you know, a pretty good budget for 2022 if COVID goes away. And it's really important for me to make it work. And again, my clock is ticking. And so you know, it's not like if COVID is at all gone, I'm going to put 100% into making it work in 2022. But it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to do anything until I get input from everyone as far as what markets I need to advertise and what means what like what Alicia was saying was exactly right. If I can get students from anywhere outside of Europe to understand what this program actually is and does, even at 10,000, the price sticker is not too much because it is a very special program. But I don't want to scare people away, so I charge less. But I don't know how to communicate that. Like, how do you do that in a marketing way? So I think that's a huge point.
Well,
Also,
there's
if
too
I
much.
may add, sorry, about Pia. Pia said that she did a study about having the experience, and I think Voyager Europe did the amazing job because not only do we get our personal time in Madrid and get the experience and community feeling, but we also get the feeling of you're on a vacation because we get to those hotels. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 5-star, which we experienced on the first star, but also we get to a decent hotel that basically are very clean. And at the end of the day, you don't have to be you don't stay in your hotel 24 hours. You just have to have a basic clean and safe environment, which is what Voyager Europe did amazing.
Yep. So we have another meeting literally started a minute ago, but I want to finish the questions first, what we asked students to help with. So the next section is marketing. And again, I hope you've been listening to the last hour because many things have been tested. So a recommendation to advertise on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram, it's not a good recommendation. Not because these are not good platforms, but because it's generic. So the idea is out there. So you need to show some specific ideas, some maybe specific guidelines that you think will work on any of the channels, platforms that you will be recommending. So simply saying advertise on Facebook, not good. An interesting ad that might work, that's interesting. Or maybe if you recommend some other advertisement channels, get into the details. Tell how much will it cost, tell what needs to be said, tell how it needs to be done. So basically get into the details. And then
make it as personal as possible.
Exactly, as detailed, because remember, the company already has a lot of experience with it. So show them something they don't know. And finally, operations. So there is a question a little bit about finance, a little bit about, so price, we talked about that already. But then also finances in terms of if the payments need to be collected, if it comes from overseas, maybe look into that. And then if it would be some sort of like a partnership that requires local personnel, maybe you have some, I don't know, suggestions for a country where you think there will be a lot of interested students, but it needs to be in collaboration with someone local, like a local representative, tell a little bit more than about the HR and how that collaboration could be set. And so, so once we have the ideas from the students, we'll relay them to the company, and maybe some of the students, you will want to join this group. And so for the next summer, I'm actually seriously considering about sending my own kids. So it might be a good experience for him. So we'll see what our plans look like. The challenge, obviously, with COVID is that nobody will probably be willing to buy the tickets until they know for sure that it can happen. And so, and here we are kind of in this waiting mode. So will it be getting better? Will it be getting worse? So this sort of limbo. So, but yeah, if everything goes fine, there is a good chance my kid will be going with you on the group. So
is Masha on there online? Because she didn't say anything. I just wanted to say hi, and I want to see her if she's there.
Yeah, please, Masha, say hi.
Hi. Here. Sorry, I have two Zoom meetings going on. Sorry. So, yeah, Voyager experience was a wonderful experience for me. And in terms of the hostel and so on, I will say no to that as well because it was so comfortable with all the traveling that we were doing, getting to lie in a nice, comfortable hotel room, and then having the dorm in Madrid to go back to. It was so good going back home. And with all the traveling, having someplace safe to keep our stuff. I mean, because we couldn't be traveling and pulling all those luggages around Europe. So having someplace safe to keep our stuff and then getting back home where it was comfortable. We were familiar with the people even in the restaurants. I remember sometimes that morning I would go down to breakfast and they already knew what I want because they got used to it, and so they knew what I wanted then, and that was really good because we had like students that had different dietary restrictions and so on, and then they were able to cater to their needs. So that was really good. So I'm just going to recommend this to everybody because they take care of our needs physically in terms of flight. I remember I even had a death in my family when I was there, and Mike and Ricia, they were there for me, checking in on me, making sure I was okay, just dealing with it in the right way. So they were there for us, I mean, in all sense of the way. So I would totally recommend this. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if it's one thing I will point, Marsha did call our place to stay in Madrid home, and that's exactly what it was for that month. We had a home for the month, whether we left it 100 or 1,000,000 times, we always came back and we knew what it was, and we were fine in our
I have to tell you that I love all these guys a lot, and so I don't want people to think that. I mean, I still stay in touch with every student that's ever gone in the program, and I still consider them family. But these three are very special, so I don't want everybody to think that every single person feels this way, but I do think we've accomplished what we were trying to do. We just have to get it out there and market it and get people to attend. I do not think, and I do have a lot of experience in study abroad. I've worked, for 2 other companies, and I've done this a lot. I don't think anybody touches us. I think we are a superb thing. And actually, Alicia said something that I never even thought about, but we just are having a hard time conveying what the entire experience is to people in our marketing.
Yeah.
And we're obviously not.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, anyway, so I really need to run to my next meeting, which I'm late to. So thank you so much. Very informative. So let's see what the students come up with. Hopefully lots of good ideas and leads.
Just one more thing. You let the students know I'm always available. And what I'm thinking about doing is putting together a fact sheet after I hear from some of them for all the ex-culture students that are working on Voyager.
That's a
so
good
it'll
idea.
make it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
And since there are several of you, one thing that I would recommend, many companies started doing that within X-Culture. If you want to set up some sort of like maybe weekly or bi-weekly like office hours, if you want to set a time when one of you is available for students to sort of maybe hear the ideas and provide feedback, that might be not a bad idea. So I'm not sure how much all of you are involved, but maybe, at least once in a while. So it doesn't have to be like a big webinar for the whole cohort, but maybe some additional follow-up time that, you are available at the time, if the students want to stop
You
by.
can set me up for a weekly one, and then if any of them are available, they will.
We'll coordinate.
I don't want to impose on them that way. So.
Yeah, we'll coordinate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So, yeah.
Thank you. Great to see you
Bye-bye.
guys. Love you all.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye.